Streaming. Welcome everyone to this penultimate part of our Manah-Siksa lectures. Today we have reached verse 10. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyanangyana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vidyaya Devi Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gatiranyatha. So welcome everyone back to the Manah-Siksa series. Welcome Gurunishta, Gaurnarayana, Chandana. Nice to see you, or at least see your names again. We have reached now the 10th verse of the Manah-Siksa. We're almost at the end. There's only 2 more verses to go. So let us again, as before, recite the verse together. I'll share the screen with you and then hopefully I will find it here. Ratim Gauri Lile Apitapati Saundarya Kiranai 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 Shachi Lakshmi Satya Paribhavati Saubhagyavalanai 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 Vashikaraishchandra Valimukhanavina Vrajasati Vashikaraishchandra Valimukhanavina Vrajasati Vashikaraishchandra Valimukhanavina Vrajasati Vashikaraishchandra Valimukhanavina Vrajasati Kshipatya Radhyatam Varidaidaita Radham Vajamana Kshipatya Radhyatam Haridayita Radham Bhajamana Kshipatya Radhyatam Haridayita Radham Bhajamana Kshipatya Radhyatam Haridayita Radham Bhajamana. In the last verse, Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami presented to us a beautiful smarana, or a beautiful meditation on Sri Vrindavan, on Radha, on Krishna, on Lalita and Vishakha. And in this verse, he continues on from there. And the previous verse ended with Smaramana, Oh my mind, remember, remember. Engage in remembrance, smarana, meditation. In this verse, he doesn't end with smara mana, but bhaja mana. Bhaja, from the verb bhaj, means to partake, to give, and to worship. But worship not in an abstract, distant, or intellectual way, like worship is often understood in the perhaps Protestant North European sense, but bhaja in a embodied way. Worship using your whole being, not only your mind, not only your intellect, but your whole self, with all of its aspects. Bhaja, worship. The noun bhajana, we often understand as meaning a particular kind of songs of worship. But in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, bhajana really refers to worship in a more broad way, but also in a sense in a more narrow way, because bhajana is usually reserved for a very high kind of worship. When we worship on the altar, for example, we call that archana. And archana, while that itself also is not exactly for the beginner, it's still an external kind of worship. You can ring the bell and wave the incense in front of the Lord and think of something completely different. I did that this morning, for example. For a moment, I was even singing the Arati song, I was doing the Arati, and my mind was somewhere completely else until I kind of caught myself. Okay, yeah, so then I paid a little bit more attention. But when you're engaging in bhajana, that's not what you're doing. Then your heart is in what you're doing. So if we wanted to translate the word bhajana, in a kind of free way, it would be something like heartfelt, pure, participatory worship. Because the kind of bhajana, that Raghunath Das here is interested in, when he's asking us to worship here, it's the kind of worship where you yourself are part of the divine drama that you're worshiping. So you're not worshiping as an outsider, you're worshiping as one within the drama itself. So we can understand that this is a, a very high topic, and it's certainly far beyond my eligibility, really. But I'm going to speak as far as I've understood from the commentary of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and others as well. So who is it that we are to worship? Well, this will not come as a surprise for any of us who know a little bit about Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. Raghunatha Das, of course, is a great devotee in the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, the book that I'm working with. He's called the Parama Bhagavata by Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami is his senior. Sanatana Goswami is the most senior of the so-called 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. But he saw Raghunath Dasa as a Parama Bhagavata, as the highest type of devotee. So he's a great devotee of Krishna, but he's even a greater devotee of Radha. He loves Krishna because Krishna is Radha's beloved. His love is Radha Sneha Adhika. He's more concerned with Radha than with Krishna. We've heard about this divine couple all the time, and it really is a couple. It's not that we're worshipping Krishna separately from Radha or Radha separately from Krishna. But nevertheless, his love is more for Radha than Krishna, even when they are together. And who is Radha? Who is this Radha that we are to worship? She is Haridayita. Haridayita. He's saying Haridayita Radham Bhajamana. Again, notice how it's easiest to understand the Sanskrit when you start from the end. Oh my mind, worship her, Tam, who is Haridayita Radha. Who is Radha? The dearmost of Hari, or the dearmost of Krishna. There's a verse in the Brihad Tantra that says that of all the gopis, Radha and Chandravali are the supreme. And among these two, Radha is the first. Radha is the very embodiment of Krishna's Hladini Shakti, or his exhilarating pleasure and ecstasy giving power. So it's not that she's different from him. She's his energy, he's the energetic. They're both really one. But they have become two, Krishnadas Kaviraj says in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to taste the sweetness of love. Ekatmana vapi bhuvipuro deha bhedam gatautau. He says, one body, one self, ekatmana, one self, deha bhedam gatautau. But they have become like two bodies, one self and two bodies. So from a kind of metaphysical understanding, from a metaphysical level, we can understand that what's spoken about here is the internal play of the Absolute. Srila Sridhar Maharaj likes to use this kind of language. The play of the Absolute playing with its own energies, delighting in itself. And as the Upanishads say, ekaki naramate. There's no fun in being alone. So for Ramana, for happiness, for pleasure, the Absolute expands into two. So this is kind of the tattvik, the siddhantic or the philosophical or abstract way to see all of this. But Raghunatha Dasa Goswami is not interested in the abstract. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami is not interested primarily in the philosophy or in the cold words of the Upanishads. He's interested in the Leela, in the divine play, in the divine adventure, in the divine love life of Radha and Krishna. So when he's describing Radha in this verse, he doesn't say that she is the Hladini Shakti, she is this and that metaphysically and so on. He's focusing here on her as a person. And this, of course, is very important for us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. There is a philosophy behind all of this, what we're doing. Sripad Padmanabh Maharaj, he calls this lecture series Tattva Viveka, or the discernment of truths or categories, the philosophical background on which Krishna Lila is painted, or something like this. So it's very important. But the farther we advance, the less important all this philosophy becomes. It is said about Saint Thomas of Aquino, who was, of course, a very influential Catholic theologian of the Middle Ages, really the kind of main person of the whole scholastic school, who wrote so many learned books that people are still studying today. Right at the end of his life, he had an epiphany in a kind of not very glorious surrounding. While sitting on the toilet, he had an epiphany. And he realized that everything that he had written during his whole life was just like straw. It's all completely worthless. From his perspective there at the end of his life. So Raghunath Das, he would have felt the same. All of this philosophy, when you actually realized the divine Leela, Radha and Krishna, it's all just like straw. It's like straw for him, not necessarily for us. For us, all of these things may be extremely important. That's why the other Goswamis, of course, wrote philosophy. Jiva Goswami is a great philosopher, learned in many of the philosophical schools of his day. So it's not that philosophy is not necessary for anybody, but for Raghunath Das, as he's revealing his heart in these verses, it's not very important. What's important for him now is person, the personality of Sri Radha. And the first thing he says about her is Hari Daita Radha. She is beloved by Hari. And Daita here means beloved, but it can also mean Radha, to whom Hari is beloved. So it's not a one-way street. It's not that Krishna loves Radha, she doesn't so much care about him. Or Radha loves Krishna, but he's aloof. It's not like that. They're completely controlling each other by their love. And then he gives some more description about Radha in the rest of the verse. Ratim Gauri Lile Apitapati Saundarya Kiranai. By the rays of her beauty, Saundarya Kiranai, the rays of her beauty. Raghunath Das really loves this kind of metaphorical language. By the rays of her beauty, she burns Rati, Gauri, and Leela. She burns them. What does this mean? Of course, it means that she completely outshines them. What does it mean that Radha is beautiful? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that in bhakti, beauty and love is one and the same. When we say that Radha is beautiful, it means that she loves Krishna the most. The more somebody loves Krishna, the more beautiful he or she becomes. We see this among devotees even now. How beautiful those who love Krishna really are. They may be old or young or men or women or something else, but they are so beautiful. Just seeing them, we are like kind of struck by their beauty, burned by their beauty even. So Radha, with her beauty, she burns Rati, Gauri, and Leela. Who are these three persons? Rati is the wife of the god of love. He has two wives, Rati and Raga, I think. Anyway, Rati, she's the wife of the god of love, and we can imagine how beautiful she must be if the god of love has married her. She's representing that supreme worldly beauty that you can imagine. Nobody can be more beautiful in this world than Rati. But she's completely eclipsed by Radha's beauty. Who is Gauri? Gauri is the wife of Shiva. None of the goddesses are as beautiful as Gauri. Raghunath Das says, Radha completely eclipses worldly beauty, but so she does with divine beauty as well. Not even the wife of Shiva, Gauri, Parvati, Durga, all these names that she has. And of course, she's extremely beautiful. She's so beautiful that she's even bewildering Shiva, the greatest of all ascetics. But Radha eclipses her as well. Leela, or sometimes known as Neela, she is the wife of Vishnu, one of his wives. Shri, Bhu, and Leela are the three wives of Vishnu. And the concerts of Vishnu, especially in the Pancharatric tradition of Vaishnavism that you'll find particularly in the South India, there sometimes you'll find Srimurtis of Vishnu accompanied by these three Shaktis, Shri, Bhu, and Leela. So Radha eclipses worldly beauty, she eclipses divine beauty, she eclipses even the beauty of Lord Narayana's wife. So even transcendental beauty is eclipsed by her. In which way? How can you measure beauty? Well, you can't really measure it, but you can measure love, perhaps, in the sense of love being so, Radha's love being so great that Krishna is completely captivated by her. It's not that Krishna doesn't love Shamananda or Olav or any one of us. Of course he does. But he reciprocates our love. He doesn't force his love on us. If we want to take a break from Krishna and go and spend a couple or a dozen more lifetimes in this material world, he's not going to grudge us for that. Okay, Bhrigu, if you want to, then go ahead. It's not very smart, but if you really want to, then do it. It's not going to force us. Love is nothing that can be forced. Prabhupada gave the example that if somebody points a gun at your head and asks you, do you love me? We're definitely going to say yes, very much, but how much of love will that be? So Krishna doesn't force his love on us. He will reciprocate our love. Radha, her love is the greatest, so he reciprocates with her to the greatest degree. Shachi Lakshmi Satya Paribhavati Saubhagya. With the waves of her fortune, she conquers Shachi, Lakshmi, and Satya. So with the rays of her beauty, she burns these three. And with the waves of her fortune, she Paribhavati can mean conquer or flood or something like this. So she floods Shachi, Lakshmi, and Satya. When we hear as Gaudiya Vaishnavas the word Shachi, we think of Nimai Pandit's mother. But she gets her name from another Shachi, who is the wife of Indra. She's also known as Indrani sometimes. So the wife of Indra is the queen of heaven. Who can be more fortunate than her? Who can have more bhagya, more opulence? Karen likes this word, opulence. Who can have more opulence than the queen of heaven? Well, Lakshmi does. Lakshmi is the very goddess of fortune. She's the goddess of all kinds of riches and wealth and fortune. Who can be more fortunate than her? Satyabhama can. Because Lakshmi is the wife of Vishnu, but Satyabhama is Krishna's wife. Satyabhama is the foremost of the 16,108 wives of Krishna in Dwaraka. How can Krishna have 16,108 wives? That's the question that Narada asked himself. He thought, Krishna is supposed to be a really nice person and equal to everyone, but he has 16,108 wives. If he likes Satyabhama a lot, then maybe he spends most of his time with her. So let's say he spends 4 days a week with Satyabhama. So he leaves 3 other days for 16,107 wives. It doesn't make up for many seconds for each wife per week. So he went to Dwaraka to check out how Krishna had arranged all of this. And he came to the city of Dwaraka, and he saw it was full of palaces. And people said that these are Krishna's palaces. So he went into one, and he saw Krishna with one of his wives, let's say with Rukmini, and they were playing with their children. And he thought, wow, that's very idyllic family scene. So he paid his respects and chatted for a while, and then he went into another palace to see what was going on there when Krishna wasn't there. But Krishna was there as well with another wife. They were just eating and relaxing. So he went into another palace, and he realized after a while that there's 16,108 wives, but there's 16,108 Krishnas at the same time, with these wives at exactly the same time doing different things with all of them. Nevertheless, out of all of these wives, it is said that Satyabhama is the supreme through her fortune. Why is Satyabhama the supreme? She's not the first. Rukmini is the first. Satyabhama, because she is so fortunate that she can boss Krishna around. With her, Krishna is a henpecked husband. She says, I'm so bored with these flowers here in Dwaraka. Can you bring the Parijata flower from heaven? Krishna goes away to heaven, and he fights with Indra, and he brings down Parijata flowers, just because his wife asked him to. So who can be more fortunate than Satyabhama? Radha. Radha is more fortunate than even Satyabhama. It is said that the great poet Jayadeva Goswami, the author of the Gita Govinda, he was writing his lyrical poem, the Gita Govinda, and he was thinking that at one point of the drama, when Krishna has done something wrong and Radha is upset with him, she's in her mana or jealous anger, and then Krishna tries to appease her, and he thinks, how could he do that? And then he thinks he should bow before her and place her foot on his head. But immediately when he thought like that, he thought, oh no, yeah, maybe some ordinary Casanova could do that, but Krishna is God. God can't take the foot of a woman on his head. That would be scandalous. If I would write that, people would ostracize me from the community of the learned and poets. You can't write something like that. So he went to take bath and think about all of this. He told his wife that he's going. He went away. He took bath in the Ganges River, and he meditated on this and couldn't really figure out how to resolve this scene in the text. So he came back, and his wife said, "Oh, I thought you came already an hour ago." "What do you mean? I've been bathing in the Ganges and meditating." "But you came like an hour ago already. Did you go again?" "No, but I clearly saw you come in, and then you went to your study." And so he was mystified, and he went to see, and he went into his study, and he saw that somebody has been writing in his manuscript, in this Gita Govinda that he's writing. And exactly the scene that he had been visualizing had been written there in lyrical poetry. Dehi me pada pallava mudaram, give me the dust from your lotus feet, and so on. So who can be more fortunate than Radha? Krishna wants the dust from her feet on his head. He's subjugating himself completely in front of her. Then Raghunatha Dasa Goswami says, Vashikarais Chandravali Mukhanavina Vrajasati Kshipatyara Dyatam. She subdues and throws away Kshipatyarad. She throws away all the virtuous ladies of Vraja, all the young virtuous ladies of Vraja, led by Chandravali. In Vraja, in the pastoral land of Vrindavana, there are so many cowherd girls. They are led by Chandravali. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, interesting, calls them Navina Vraja Sati. Sati means a virtuous lady. You probably have heard of the custom of Sahamarana, that the British called the custom of Sati, where a woman burns herself on the funeral pyre of her deceased husband. These kind of women are called satis, and the word, of course, comes originally from Shiva's first wife, Sati, who burned herself in anger over Daksha's insult of her husband. So the word sati refers in Sanskrit literature to any very virtuous, very chaste, and very pure and holy wife. The kind of wife that in ancient times were called Asuryam Pashya, that not even the sun was allowed to look on them. They were so keen to uphold their honor that they didn't allow even the sun to see them. They would always, if they traveled around, they would go in a palanquin or under a parasol or something like this. How does this describe the gopis? These are girls running around barefoot in the sand of Vrindavan, definitely not hunkered under some parasol, or definitely not chaste and holy women. They're all having extramarital affairs with that black snake Krishna. All the gopis are married, almost all of them. Radha is married to Abhimanyu. Chandravali is married to Govardhana, Malla. They're all married. Some of them have children. How can they be said to be chaste? They're running around with Krishna in the forest at night. Well, of course, this can be answered in different ways. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit asks this question of Shukadev. Krishna is supposed to be the very bridge to dharma, the very bridge to virtue and saintliness. But he's dancing in the forest with other people's wives. How is this possible? And Shukadeva Goswami, of course, gives an answer there, but it can be answered in different ways. Our Guru Maharaj sometimes says, when somebody has asked him this, he said, yes, the gopis are married to other men, but who is the husband of those men? Krishna is the husband of everybody, because Krishna really, from the metaphysical perspective, Krishna is the only male. Krishna is the only Purusha. Everybody else is Prakriti in the sense of being for Krishna's enjoyment. So it looks like these girls are unchaste and doing something strange, but it's not like that at all. But it looks like that because that's, of course, what brings excitement to the Leela, to the play. The gopis, they are married to other people, but that's just a show. they don't ever spend the night with their husbands. Their husbands just kind of think it's strange that it never happens, but they can never kind of figure out that it never actually happens, not even once. They just think, oh, something happened this night. Somehow perhaps she had to take care of a cow that was sick or something like that. There's always some kind of excuse. But it never happens. But this they can't figure out because it's part of the yoga maya, the divine illusion that is making the whole lila, the whole adventure go around. So out of all of these young women of Vraja, Chandravali is the first. She is the one that loves Krishna most. But Radha loves Krishna even more. So she eclipses even Chandravali. Now we're not speaking about the material world. We're not speaking about the world of the gods. We're not speaking about the world of Vishnu. We're not even speaking about the world of Krishna outside of Vrindavan, where Satyabhama is supreme. We're speaking about Krishna in his home, in his the land that is most dear to his heart, the land of Vraja. There Radha reigns supreme. So Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, he says that she is supreme to all these others in these ways. And in the commentaries of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and others, they give more descriptions of Sri Radha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he cites several prayers of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. He wrote not as extensively as the other Goswamis, but nevertheless he wrote quite a bit, much of it about Radha. He also cites from the Ujjvala Nilamani of Rupa Goswami, and I thought I would read a little bit there just to give you some description of Radha. The Ujjvala Nilamani consists of quite a few chapters. In Bhanu Swami's translation, it's a huge book. But the fourth chapter is a description of Radha. And I'll read some verses from verse 6 onwards. It is explained in Gautamiya Tantra that Radha is the essence of the great Shakti called Hladini, the best of all Shaktis. Radha, the very form of the highest beauty, has 16 accoutrements and 12 ornaments. Indian thinkers love categories, of course. And so here we'll hear about 16 abharanas, 16 shringaras, and 12 abharanas, accoutrements and ornaments. So first the 16 accoutrements. Radha shines with these 16 accoutrements: freshly bathed body, a pearl shining at the tip of her nose, a colored cloth, a sash around her waist, tied up braid, ear ornaments, anointed limbs, flowers in her hair, garland around her neck, lotus in her hand, betel nut in her mouth, musk dot on her chin, mascara on her eyes, pattern on her cheeks, lac on her feet, and tilaka on her forehead. And then Rupa Goswami, he gives verses describing all of this later. The 12 ornaments. Radha shines like the sun with 12 ornaments. The sun also has 12 parts, the Dvadasha Adityas. So Radha has 12 ornaments. Her shining crown jewel, her 2 gold earrings, her gold belt, her medallion, her 2 chakri shalakas, these are kind of ear ornaments, her 2 bracelets, her throat ornament, her rings, her necklace, her armbands, her anklets made of jewels, and her dazzling toe rings. And then he says in the next verses, the outstanding qualities of Radha are glorified. She is beautiful, possesses new youth, has fickle glances, has a bright smile, beautiful lines of fortune. These lines of fortune are in Sanskrit aesthetics. If a woman has 3 lines on the side of her belly, she's considered to be particularly beautiful. So not too thin, not too big, but just perfect. A fragrance that frenzies Krishna. She's skillful at singing, has a pleasant voice, she's expert at joking, is humble, compassionate, sly, clever, shy, respects proper conduct, is patient, inscrutable, coy, manifests thirst for Krishna with the highest state of Mahabhava, is the abode of Prema in Gokula, has lustrous fame, is the object of great affection from elders, is controlled by the affection of her friends, is the chief of Krishna's beloveds, and constantly controls Krishna. What more can be said? Her qualities, like Krishna's, cannot be counted. And then all of these things are then described in descriptive verses, partly from original verses and partly from earlier texts. I also want to read a little bit from something else Rupa Goswami has written. He has written a poem, a fairly long poem, in his Stavamala, 24 verses, called Chartu Pushpanjali. Chartu means beautiful words, and Pushpanjali means flowers in your cupped hands. Pushpanjali is a ritual where you fill your hands with flowers and offer those flowers as a gift. So these are flower offerings of beautiful words. Navagoro chanagaurim pravarendri varam varam manistavaka vidyoti venuyalangapanam. O Radhika, you are fair as fresh gorochana. This is a very bright yellow color, and have garments as splendid as a blue lotus. Your braids, being decorated with jewels and flowers, give the appearance of a serpent's hood. When Rupa Goswami wrote this, that Radha's braid looks like a cobra, his older brother and senior, Sanatana Goswami, he didn't like it. I mentioned this briefly last time. Sanatana Goswami didn't like it because he thought, that doesn't sound very nice, that her braid looks like a cobra. You can't write like that, Rupa. Write something nice instead. So he thought, yeah, okay, sure, I will think of something else. So now Sanatana Goswami went perhaps to do Govardhan Parikrama or something like that. And while walking around Govardhan Hill, he saw some girls playing. And one of these cowherd girls, just ordinary girls of the Vraja area, one of these girls stood with her back against him, and they were doing something there. And he noticed that the snake had climbed up on her. A cobra had climbed up on her and was about to bite her. So he shouted out, "Oh, Lali, Lali, girl, watch out!" And she looked around, and he realized, that's Radha. And she disappeared. So he ran back to Rupa Goswami and said, "Stop, stop, 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 don't take it out, don't take it out. That's exactly how it should be. Her braid really looks like a cobra." Rupa Goswami goes on, he says, "Your incomparable face defeats any object of comparison. You have a beautiful forehead decorated with an elegant musk tilaka, which defies the beauty of the new moon. Your eyebrows conquer the beauty of the love god's bow. You have dark, bluish, curly locks of hair, and your eyes, decorated with kajala, reign supreme, appearing as 2 splendid chakori birds." So this poetry, of course, it doesn't open up completely for us. It's a little bit like reading the Song of Songs in the Bible. Some of these similes don't work for us. Eyes like chakori birds doesn't really say that much. But we can think about her eyes, decorated with kajala, big eyes, and of course we heard in the previous verses that she's expert at sidelong glances, at looking at Krishna in a way that is similarly, at the same time, shy, but also coy. Did you notice both of these qualities? She's shy, but she's also coy. She's not like Chandravali. Chandravali is very dear to Krishna, but Chandravali needs to kind of exert herself to make Krishna really love her. She needs to be on her best behavior and to kind of make an effort to capture Krishna. And he loves her. But Radha doesn't need to do that. Radha just needs to kind of show herself, even looking sulky and angry, and Krishna is immediately captured. Just her sidelong glance for the 1/1,000,000th of a second, and Krishna is melting. The tip of your nose resembles a sesame flower and is decorated with a splendid pearl ring. Your lips defeat the beauty of the flowers that redden at noon, and your teeth are like a row of jasmines. You have earrings which resemble a golden whorl of a lotus embedded with jewels. Your chain is decorated with a dot of musk, and you wear a shining gem-studded necklace. So she has a beauty spot. I think this is quite interesting. I always thought that that was something the French made up, like Marie Antoinette or something like that. But Radha already has a beauty spot made with musk. Your divine lotus stem-like arms are decorated with shining armlets and with tinkling bracelets made of jewels and blue sapphires. Your lotus hand has attractive fingers that shine with gem-studded rings. Your beautiful breasts have an attractive necklace that playfully moves around them. And he goes on like this. And then at the end, he writes, the lake of your heart is filled with a limitless flood of mercy. O Devi, a goddess, please be kind to this person who yearns to attain your service. Service to Sri Radha is the supreme goal of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Well, not all Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but those Gaudiya Vaishnavas who have the mood of Sringara Rasa or Madhurya Rasa. And this, of course, is the mood of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. Tavaivasmi najivami tvayavina iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamam charanantikam. Maybe you noticed I said that prayer at the beginning. Tavaivasmi, I'm yours. I'm yours. I cannot live without you. Please understand this, goddess, and take me to your side. This is the prayer of Vaishnavas, such as Raghunath Das and Rupa Goswami. When will I fan you as you begin to perspire a little at the time when Sri Madhava artistically and carefully decorates you with Madhavi flowers? O beautiful one, when will you order this person to fix your curly locks of hair, now disarrayed due to your amorous pastimes? O Radhika, whose lips are like bimba fruits, when will the Prince of Raja snatch away and enjoy the betel nuts as I place them in your lotus mouth? So he's praying here for service, for bhajana, for service in the Leela, service of fanning, service of correcting her hair, of giving a betel nut. Very small, kind of simple, insignificant thing. If Karen would tell us that she's gotten a job as a person who offers betel nuts to some king, we would kind of feel bad for her. That must be the most boring job in the world, that you stand around the king and maybe he eats 5 betel nuts a day. So 5 times a day you get to give a betel nut. It really must suck. But the smallest thing in the divine pastimes, of course, is so different. Just being able to come in contact with the divine couple for a second will flood the practitioner's heart with love. Like Narottam Das sings, Radha Krishna Pranamora Yugala Kishora. Radha Krishna, the divine youthful couple, they are my very life and soul. Kalindira Kule Keli Kadambera Ban Ratana Bedira Yupar Bosa Bodujana. On a jeweled throne in a Kadamba grove by the Yamuna, the youthful couple sits, and then he prays for these kind of small services. Shama Gauri Angaheri Chandanira Gandha Chamara Dulabo Kobe Duhu Mukhachandra. When will I be able to offer sandalwood pulp to you? When will I be able to fan you with the chamara fan? Gatiya malatir mala dibo dohar gole adhare tuliya dibo korpura tambule. When will I be able to string a garland of malati, jasmine flowers, and offer it around your necks? When will I be able to give betel nut for you to enjoy? Lalita Bishakaya di Jata Shakhi Brinda Agyaya Koribo Shiva Charanarabindo. I want to do seva, I want to serve under the guidance of Lalita and Vishakha and the Sakhis. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dashe Ranudash Shivaya Vilasha Kore Narottamadash. Narottamadash prays for service at the feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and his servant and their servants. So this kind of simple service of giving betel nut, of fanning with the chamara and so on, these are the kind of services that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas long for in their hearts. But we cannot do that kind of service unless we first kind of empty ourselves out of the abhiman, or the self-conception we have right now. Otherwise, we're going to think that what could be more boring than standing there with a whisk? Your hand is going to get really tired. I don't want to serve. I would really like somebody else to fan me with a chamara, or offer me some betel nut, or decorate my neck with a flower garland. So as long as we have all these things, and this of course is what Raghunatha Das has been exhorting his mind to get rid of throughout the Manah-Siksa, now getting here to the 10th verse. As long as all these things remain in our hearts, this kind of service will be very far away from us. But sometimes it's good to hear about it, to kind of create this kind of longing. When will that day be mine, when I will be able to forget about being an academic or a Swede or a Finn or a man or a woman or anything like this in this world, and just completely surrender myself at the feet of the divine couple. So here in this verse, Raghunatha Das, he takes us all the way to this kind of service of Radha. And in the next verse, he will continue on this theme. So we're getting close to the end of the text. Any questions or comments on today's talk? And again, of course, you can put comments and questions on the Tattva Viveka Facebook page as well. That's actually what Guru Maharaj has suggested that we do to get more discussion going there. And also, one thing I forgot to say, at least here in Finland and in the Nordic countries, maybe it's different somewhere else in the world. Here we're celebrating Kamada Ekadashi today, the Ekadashi of the bright fortnight of the month of Chaitra. Kamada means enjoyment giving. And who gives more enjoyment to Krishna than Radha? I thought this was a nice coincidence that it's that day today. So thank you for your attendance today. Please forgive me if I said something that I shouldn't have said, or if I kind of ventured in where angels fear to tread. But I tried to speak about the topic that Raghunatha Das shares with us here today. Jai Shri Shri Guru Govardhana Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Radha Govinda Radha Gopinatha Radha Ramara Radha Sham Sundara Radha Ramana Radha Gokulananda Radha Madhava Ruji Gopal Nitai Gaur Shri Shadabhuj Giriraja Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Parang Sapravrajaka Stotra Sata Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta Tripurari Dev Goswami Maharaj Gurudev Ki Jai. Jai Nitile Pravishna Vishnupad Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitile Pravishna Vishnupad Bhakti Jai Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Sachidananda Mohi Thakur Bhakti Vinod Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Gauri Vedanta Acharya Srila Bharati Bhushan Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Srinivas Shamananda Narottam Prabhu Trai Ki Jai. Jai Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Vyasavata Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur Mahashai Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Char Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Rai Ramananda Ari Gaur Pashavrind Ki Jai. Jai Prem Sagocha Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Jai Shri Antardvip Mayapur Simantadvip Madhyadvip Koladvip Ritudvip Chandradvip Madhyadvip Modra Dumadvip Rudradvip Atmago Drumadvip Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopa Govardhana Dvada Svanatmaka Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jai Dvada Pavan Ki Jai. Jai Shamakunda Radha Kunda Ganga Yamana Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jai Purushottam Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshana Ki Jai. Jai Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Kari Shri Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jai Bhakta Parapara Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Char Vaishnava Sambradai Ki Jai. Char Vaishnava Acharya Ki Jai. Char Dham Ki Jai. Char Veda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Kamada Ekadashi Ki Jai. Akara Matara Shri Chaitanya Mat Ki Jai. Tadiya Shakhamata Suma Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Sangha Ki Jai. Ananda Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Bhuvan Mangal Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shri Raghunatha Das Goswami Manah-Siksa Ki Jai. Ananda Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur.
Bhrigupada Prabhu Ki Jai.
Right.
So see you for the other classes, the upcoming days. And then next week for the last part of Manah-Siksa series. Hari Bo, Hare Krishna.